Good afternoon. I'm Tim Lynch. I am your host of Legal Lines. Legal Lines is brought to you by the Massachusetts LGBTQ Bar Association. We're brought to you live the third Wednesday of every month at this time, 4 o'clock. My guest here today is Cameron McGinn, and Cameron is from the CTI, and he will explain that in a moment. I'm sorry about that. We're going to talk about what CTI has been up to and what issues they are focused in on this year. If at any time you'd like to join us, our number here is 617-708-3290, 617-708-3290. Cameron, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Cameron, let me start right off. You are co-chair of CTI. Mm-hmm. What is CTI?
So CTI is the Committee for Transgender Inclusion, and we are the most active committee of the Massachusetts LGBTQ Bar Association.
And having been on the Bar Association for quite some time and sitting on the board, I would agree with that. You guys are amazing, and that's why I'm always so happy to have people from your organization on the show, because there's always lots going on. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what's the mission of CTI?
So we have two main purposes. One is to ensure that the Bar Association is inclusive of transgender and gender nonconforming individuals, and to sort of give a perspective that the Bar Association may not have or may strive to be inclusive, but needs that sort of insight from the community on how to be inclusive. The other mission is to be a source of support and community for transgender and gender nonconforming people in the Bar Association. So we're open to law students and lawyers and try to put together community events or work on different activist causes in the area.
That's awesome. Now let's talk a little about definitions.
Sure.
You use two different phrases, transgender and gender nonconforming.
Yeah.
So could you define them for us?
Sure. So transgender tends to be an umbrella term that can encompass a whole spectrum of different identities. I think that some people tend to think of transgender as purely a physical thing, a transition from male to female or female to male. And it's actually a lot more complicated than that. People may identify as a man or as a woman or as neither or both or one or the other at different times. People may present in different ways. They may use different kinds of pronouns, the traditional he, him, his, her, hers, she. I had to think of that for a second. Yeah. Go through, some people use they, some people use he and ze. There's sort of a whole different system that you can use for pronouns. We also, we say we're not just inclusive of transgender, we're inclusive of transgender and gender nonconforming people, because so often sexuality and gender are linked. So you may have a transgender ally who is a masculine-looking woman or a more feminine-looking man who might experience some of the same discrimination a transgender person faces because of their gender presentation. Or they may not identify as transgender because they don't see themselves on a spectrum of a woman becoming a man, like that kind of terminology. They may just see themselves as presenting as androgynous.
Okay, and so let's go with the pronouns. I think I might have made a faux pas when I introduced you. So tell us a little about that.
So, pronouns are something I think a lot of people take for granted because, or a lot of cis people take for granted. And when I say cis, what I mean is someone who identifies in the same way that they may be perceived as, that their body may match, or the way they were born. So someone who was born a woman and identifies as a woman. Someone who was born a man and identifies as a man. That's when we use the term cis.
Exists?
Cis.
Cis.
C-I-S.
Oh, C-I-S, okay.
So it would be cisgender or cis man, cis woman. things like that. And I lost my train of thought.
What does this stand for? Is CIS, is that an acronym for something? Or is
No,
it's a new word for me.
You'll have to forgive me. I don't know. I assume there's some sort of root word in Latin or something like that, but I don't actually know.
Cool.
Yeah, but people tend to, what I was saying is cis people may take for granted pronouns. You're born a woman, you identify as a woman, you use her and she. But for some people, that the pronouns don't match up with their identity. You might be born a woman, you identify as a man, so you use he. Or as I was explained before, maybe you identify as somewhere in the middle of male and female.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you may use some sort of gender neutral pronoun.
Oh, what would be a gender neutral pronoun?
Well, you could use they or them, or there are sort of new pronouns that people are constructing and using. One of them is here and z, HIR and ZE.
ZE.
Yeah.
Okay, and HIR would be?
It's a combination of him and her.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Z is a mix between he and she.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you use Z whenever you use a he or a she, and a zir, here, whenever you use a him or her.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because I was going to ask you to use it in a sentence, but now I know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And there's so many there are so many different ways of saying it too. Those aren't the only sort of gender neutral pronoun. I saw an interesting chart from University of Wisconsin-Madison that had all different pronouns in cards they would hand out in sort of their sensitivity trainings. And it was all the different gender neutral pronouns that you can use.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That is very cool. What pronoun do you prefer?
I prefer male pronouns, so he, him, and his.
Okay. And I know that we at the Massachusetts LGBTQ Bar Association are in the process of adopting a policy on this issue, which is basically when we print people's name tag to put their preferred pronoun on that. Yeah. And why is that important?
So one of the important things at Massachusetts LGBTQ Bar Association, I'll say Bar Association, they're shortening it. One of the important things at events is to be relaxed, to meet with friends, but also to network. And I think of, especially being a recent law school grad, being in law school, there's this nervousness that accompanies how you're going to present. Being transgender, there's often a lot of anxieties for people about how they present at formal events. How are they going to be perceived as the gender they feel? And so what sort of led me and the people I work with at CTI to address the issue was sort of, you look at these two sources of discomfort and realize there was a big problem for people at events to sort of go through this awkward, you're meeting someone for 30 seconds, you want to present yourself in a way where you're talking about getting a job or you're talking about this or that, and then also having to explain your pronouns. And we also wanted to make people more aware in the organization that people are transgender, or people use pronouns that may not match the way they're perceived, and that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was brought up in a family where you treat people in accordance with the way they would like to be treated. Yeah. That's just to me, it's just basic common courtesy.
Yeah, definitely.
Good manners is a matter of making your guests feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So what's great about the pronouns is what we want is, and what we got past, is to have on name tags a line that says pronouns and then a blank line. And what's so great about that is people can decide at an event how they want to present, how they want to talk to other people, whether they want to disclose their gender identity, because there are some people who may, if they find their gender is fluid, may feel like they want male pronouns one day and female pronouns the next. Or they may find, you know, I'm out with my friends, but I'm not out at a formal work occasion, you know, and so they may use different pronouns, or they may not want to say what pronouns they use. But then there are people who they show up to an event and say, I want people to use female pronouns, and I want them to know right away, and I'm going to write this in. And our hope is that cis people are also able to fill in the line.
You would prefer everybody fill in the line?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because then everybody would feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's doing it.
Exactly.
So, and some people might fill it in with Z?
Yeah.
Awesome.
People might. They could put it in with, some people might put none, that they just prefer you say their name, or they might put any, that kind of however you address them would be fine. And what's great about the blank line is people can just sort of express
themselves.
how they want to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also welcomes people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And creates awareness, which you've already said, which I always love.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so okay, well, let's move a little bit now, because you guys are involved in some political issues, and obviously there's still a bill in the State House trying to get passed. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? We did get some transgender rights passed here, but not all. Yeah,
so big exception for the last bill that was presented about transgender rights was that public accommodations weren't included.
Yeah, so we got a bill passed that gives transgender people rights in employment, housing.
Exactly.
You know, all different aspects of life, with the exception of accommodations.
Yeah.
Now, accommodation means what?
It means any public or private organization that presents itself as presenting services or goods to the public. So a restaurant, a hotel, you know, kind of any kind of store you could think of. You know, it creates this strange hole in the law, not having public accommodations in the bill, in the past bill, in that someone could work at a restaurant who's transgender and could be assured that they won't be discriminated against by their employer, but then they could go to that restaurant as a customer and be refused service
because they're transgender.
Because they're transgender.
Yes, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's a very so you could literally have a transgender person being forced to refuse service to a transgender person.
Oh, yeah, you could set up that. Yeah.
Because of this law and the way it works out.
Yeah,
what is the main argument? What are folks who are against this bill? What is their main argument, or arguments, I should say?
From what I've seen, it's sort of referred to derisively as the bathroom bill.
Yes, that's very offensive too. One can only imagine. But
yes, and so the idea is if there are sex-segregated places, bathrooms, gyms, something like that. We want, or everyone working towards this bill and who presented it wants transgender people to be allowed access to those sorts of facilities. So what I mean in more concrete terms is, say a transgender woman, which would be someone who was born a man and identifies as a woman, wants to use the women's restroom, they can't be discriminated against, told by the store they're in perhaps that they can't use that bathroom or something like that. Opponents of the bill sort of look at that incorrectly as an invasion of women's privacy or things like that. I've read a lot of really derisive statements that sort of say, you know, these people, like men dressing as women can invade women's space in the bathrooms, and sort of look at transgender people in a very predatory way, and it's very troubling. I think also in sort of less moralistic terms, there are concerns about enforcement and more concrete